children and young people and their voices. So in this section, I'll look at some of the findings from the children and young people themselves. Again, these are stark and sometimes difficult to hear. So we had 250 children and young people respond to the survey, again, from all across Wales, and their ages range from just under 10 up to the age of 25, so a good broad range. All of the responses were again anonymous, and we only asked children and young people which local authority area they lived in. Each of the questions were also asked in the third person. We chose not to ask children and young people if they themselves lived in poverty, therefore we can't identify how many of them did. However, some chose to answer their questions in the first person, and therefore it's an indication that we do have many children and young people responding who do experience poverty. Again, on this, I've included a few of their quotes, and all of these, again, are verbatim. So we asked them to choose two of the options from this list. As you can see here, overall, the responses over a 3-year period are very similar, with not having enough money to pay for food, heating or electricity being chosen most often over the years. This year we included the option about money to go out with friends, and therefore there's no yearly comparison for that. And that may also account for some, because there's an additional option, may account for some of the fluctuations in the numbers in other areas. The survey then asked them to tell us how they think poverty and money affects children and young people. Now, despite this open question, the overwhelming majority of comments focused on the impact poverty had on emotions, self-esteem, not fitting in and feeling anxious. And the bullet points here on the left indicate the most commonly cited areas by children and young people. These emotional aspects that they repeatedly cited throughout are seen in the rest of the survey, and again echo those findings from the practitioners survey. So we asked them about poverty in school, and again, same format, they were to choose two from the list that was given. And generally speaking, children and young people are choosing similar issues each year. Again, the emotional impact of poverty was chosen most often with bullying. So this year, the second most commonly chosen issue was around school uniform or school equipment, which is a bit of a change from previous years. And from the comments they provided, it is clear that not having the correct school uniform was highly aligned with the likelihood of being bullied. So we asked children how we asked how children and young people might be affected by poverty in school. And it wasn't surprising, and in line with the most commonly chosen option. Bullying was most frequently cited, and explained that children and young people were often bullied because they didn't have the correct school uniform or even not enough money to buy snacks during school. There were also numerous comments about the experience of witnessing bullying, and some said that whilst they were not bullied, they did feel helpless and sad at seeing it. They wanted it to stop, but didn't know what to do or who to go to or what to say. And this clearly did have an impact on them, even though they weren't directly bullied. Now, the survey did ask specific questions around bullying, and there's much more information about bullying in the report. Other comments about how poverty affected children in school included their learning experience, and that those living in poverty were not able to do the same things as others because they didn't have the same equipment or the right equipment, or couldn't afford to pay for trips and after school clubs. And this was seen as unfair by children and young people, and they clearly stated that all children should have the same opportunities to learn and experience things. Unfortunately, there were also a few examples given where they had been called to the front of the class and had to explain why their uniform didn't fit or why they were wearing the wrong trousers. Clearly, this did have an impact on the young people, and in at least one of the circumstances given, the examples given, the outcome of that was that it increased the frequency of peer bullying, and clouded their experience of school and learning. Now, I'm sure you've all read the comment on the bottom of the screen. I've included this because it was one of the very few comments that made me smile from the findings. Whilst its content and the reality is awful, at this point, a large part of me wants to believe that it isn't a spelling mistake of uniforms, but rather that this young person is still able to think about and aspire to owning a unicorn despite their circumstances. So I'm going to believe that they are talking about a unicorn and not uniform. So using the same format, we asked children and young people about poverty and home. When asked to comment, children and young people repeatedly talked about constantly feeling anxious and worried. They were particularly concerned about being able to stay where they lived, being cold and being hungry. The quote on this page is a good example of many of the comments given, and it just really summarises all of the other quotes, really. The next slide simply shows quotes from children and young people about the impact at home. And I'm going to leave you to read these. So I think at this point, you'll have an understanding of the stark reality and the findings from the survey. As I said, there's much more in the report. However, instead of giving you more about the dreadful findings, what I want to do is show something positive. So we asked children and young people what can be done to stop bullying. So I'm hoping this is a positive slant in an otherwise overwhelming report. But you can see here that the most frequent solution is given in bold in the bullets, and children and young people were very, very keen that we raise awareness, we increase understanding, and we build compassion about the impact poverty has and about the issues children and young people are dealing with. They're very keen that everybody gets to know about that, just so that we have greater compassion and we don't make some of the mistakes that I've already alluded to, throughout the report. Now, towards the end of our survey, we offer children and young people the opportunity to say anything they want to about poverty. So this is just an open question. Many of the children and young people did respond, and the tone of their response ranged from angry, sad, right through to positive, and a number of them were very insightful. And these are just some of the comments that they did make. And then finally, we also asked them to give an example of something good that happens locally to help families living in poverty. All of those responding cited food banks without, and there was only one exception, and it was from one young person aged 10 to 11 who simply cited Nana. So on behalf of this young person, I'd like to say a huge thank you to all of the nanas who are in a position to help, because it clearly does help some of the children and young people out.